So before we jump into the detail, actually, so I'll try to explain you about what is Firebase. So Firebase is a full stack tools that help us to develop backend more much more faster and you have some sort of a website on the internet. You can use Firebase hosting and you can deploy your website within like 1 minute or 2 minutes with one single command. And then for probably if you're using database, you're trying to set up database right from scratch, for example. You set up a server and a PM or virtual machine and then try everything, set up the user and then after this a lot of things, right? So if you are using the Firebase, it's so easy just to activate the database and you can use it right away. And actually behind the scene, Professor also offers a lot of features. For example, offline mode, for example. So if you got a connection, for example, with this Firestore, you can still operate database operations in offline, which is quite good. And this is real time as well. So yeah, I think this is what's actually really interesting, and it's free at first, of course. But the point, the concept of Firebase is you might be thinking like Firebase is, I mean, it's not free, yes, of course, but actually the concept is Firebase only try something like Firebase only asks us to something like share the revenue that we have. For example, you have a website, right? You have 1 million users, right? Then you have a lot of revenue, you got money, a lot of money. Then Firebase will charge you, like, hey, give me 5% or 2% as well, right? You, for example, like that. Right? And if you don't have users, for example, you build a lot of features, a lot of servers, a lot of database, but you don't have users and you don't have revenue, then Firebase is still free. So it's safe, totally safe actually. So that's about Firebase. Alright? So the second point is about the emulator suite. So this emulator suite is about emulator. And you want to Android emulator, right? Voice, right? Now, if you are trying to develop with Firebase, you need something to emulate the features. And here is come the emulator suite. You can pass your Firebase features right in the console, right in the productions. You want to do some database operations, you want to deploy, and you deploy it on the production. I mean, that's sort of dangerous. That's where emulator suite. So we will learn more about this one, how we can use Firestore database and emulator suite and the use case, and how I take benefit from this for making other things that I will share with you. All right? Okay, cool. So let's just start. Our first topic is about Firestore. Like what I said before, Firestore is a database and it's actually a NoSQL. So what is Firestore? Firestore is a persistent NoSQL database actually. That's not bad. Sorry. Persistent NoSQL database in the cloud. So you don't have to set up your own server and you don't have to have your own machine. It's on the cloud and it is directly can be accessible from the internet. So this is good because what? Because where everything that's actually in the cloud is actually a shared access. I mean a shared resources, which means you only pay anything that you only use. I think that's really good, right? If you don't use the database, if you don't use the infrastructure, then you don't have to pay. If you use it for a lot of amount, for example, you have million users, then you will pay. I think that's quite fair. So the point is, this is a NoSQL. If you thinking about what's it, MongoDB, you know, right? MongoDB, MySQL, yeah. Those are actually two examples. For MySQL, probably you can, like for example, PostgreSQL, MySQL. Then that's actually a SQL database. But for this one, for NoSQL, essentially, for example, MongoDB, Cassandra, Firestore, real-time database, a lot. And I will explain you about those two differences later on. Okay, so there's the SQL and the SQL, right? And then here's some kind of example of the code. The code is actually quite readable. If you realize this one, maybe if you are in the major of informatics engineering or probably technology in the university, for example, you might be learning about SQL, and this is the code, right? For example, you can select all from restaurants, for example, where you will learn about it. But this is quite a lot of codes. And in the real project, if your query are so complicated, this query can be really long, and that's so easy. I mean, like so stressful and we have to meet it, right? I mean, that's so not good. So, but with the part store, as you know, this one is actually more available. The queries, for example, in here you access galleries collection, and then you have some query, and then you just need to pass the collection ordered by created tag. Like just that, like just with a simple and then readable query with a natural language programming, for example, it's our natural word, right, for us. The code is so natural, so that we can understand by just reading the code, which is good. All right. Now let's talk about data structure between SQL and NoSQL, which is I'm sure that some of you probably already understand what the difference is, right? So as you know that actually as SQL is basically you will have some tables and columns, for example. And yeah, it's actually a relational data structure. But for a NoSQL, it's not a relational data structure, but it's a key value pairs, where actually you will have some key, for example, name, city, and then the value, for example, Manila, Philippines, or value kind of thing. Like this are actually quite different the way we can structure our data. Table, relation, and key value pair. Okay, so this is one the other example, for example, a little bit more complex. As we know that, for example, we have a lot of columns and data row, right? We have some probably 1, 2, 3, 4 data, and then we might be having another for the NoSQL version. For example, you have restaurant collections, and then you will have 3 data. So actually, as you know, this is actually more flexible. Flexible database roles. Why flexible? For example, if you realize data 1 and data 3 actually, yeah, they are having the same structure. But for the data 2, for the second data, as you know, there is another field, for example, maybe like a noise level here. So this is flexible. So that the point is the more complex your application or web is going, for example, NoSQL still can adapt without difficulties. Right. So now I will show you another example. This is a diagram which is about NoSQL. So NoSQL is a document collection model. So as we know that we have these restaurants collections, and then we have some this data which is actually reviews, right? So reviews, we have a lot of documents inside reviews. So the point is, one restaurant have a lot of reviews, which is actually quite simple because if you try to compare that with the SQL, you will do some query, right? Select all from the restaurants, where reviews and everything, which means you will have some impact to another data, and that's actually not good because it can increase the memory consumptions and everything. But with this, you will only focus on one data, restaurant, and then you will have a lot of reviews, which actually make it lightweight for your operation data. Okay, so queries are still by default, as you know. As you know here, after we try to learn more about the SQL and the NoSQL, now let's learn about those two technologies that actually Firebase has. So Firebase has a real-time database. And Firebase also has a cloud platform. If you see, actually, Firebase has a real-time database. Right? But what is the difference? It's actually quite similar, but it has a different use cases. You try to look at the documentation. Usually, you have a complex query, a complex operation. You can use a class, but if you have a very simple query, for example, just to showcase probably the high score, or probably the leaderboard, then you can use real-time database. There are some use cases, and this use cases is good so that we can adapt with our use cases. All right. So in summary, actually with Alligator, we learn actually with the NoSQL text store is actually flexible, and the code is actually readable, and the performance is actually good. Okay, so that's all about the cloud text store. And now let's jump into the Firebase immediately. Before we jump in, I will show you some code of Jupyter. what is how a file store looks like and everything, so that we can understand about the file store deeper, right? So I will show another step here on this shoot, right? Right. So this is one of the Firebase console. If you see, if you check inside the Firebase console, here it is. So I have some application, live demo Firebase, for example. So if you check in the file store database, in here are the left sections, and then you will see actually there are a lot of queries actually and happening, and then a lot of data there. For example, I have this some documents, for example. So the documents is generated automatically, so you don't have to worry about the ID for the document. So it's already generated by default. If you see that, actually here I try to zoom in. You can see actually about the fields. For example, in here there is some path, tag, and URL. And this is for the demonstration of the database. I will show you that for the database, so that you have some imagination how this works. Alright, for example, we have this one. We have a gallery on our website, for example, and this is some images that I upload, and you can see it in here, and you can try to put some comments. For example, wow. And there is some connection happening here, but let's see, you try to upload it. Oh, I'm going to connection. Oh yeah, right. So actually this is a local host version, but I will show you about the production version. I will share this second. So the local host development, I will share it later on with the Firebase emulator. But for now, let's see about the production version. So in here, as you know, that actually, for example, we have a Firebase here, right? And then, yeah, we got some comments like, wow, that's funky and everything. So this is about the gallery where you can actually see about the image being uploaded and shows the comments. Right. As you know in here, so we got one comment, hello Jakarta, and yeah, there are a lot of comments that you can see. So this is how Cloud Firestore looks like. So this is a database on the cloud where you can see the data, just visiting the URL and try to look at it, and you can set up a lot of features there. And let's see, actually, there are a lot of features in the Cloud Firestore itself. For example, if you are worried about security, you can see it in here. Actually, you can implement some rules. This is about the security rules that actually the Firestore has. And you can put a lot of rules. For example, only user can access the image who actually uploaded. For example, I'm sorry. For example, user A upload image A. So actually, the one who actually has a control for the image is only the user who uploaded. So that's actually quite a basic rules. If you don't use Firebase, then you will basically build that from scratch. You have to build the rule-based access. Build everything. It takes like a week. Yeah, but this is already implemented. You can just define the rules in here. For example, allow read and write. I already implement some simple rules. For example, here. Yeah, this is about the rules. So in here, something is called Firestore, right? And then has database and documents. So basically, it will try to make some security inside the documents, and then it will allow read and write if the request actually before this kind of date, which is 25 December 2023. So this database is only accessible before. Actually, there are a lot of examples that you can use to increase the security, but this is only for the instruction so that you have some information about what is Firestore and how secure it is. All right. Now, I think we already learned about the Firestore, and probably we will go to the next one, which is about the Firebase emulator. Okay, next step. Right. Now the question is, for example, I'm a software engineer, and the company I work is using Firebase. Right? And Firebase, and the products actually already getting bigger and bigger. And the time I develop about the Firebase, for example, the data sometimes I sorry, they accidentally push the data into the production because we didn't use emulator, and that can be a disaster. For example, let me see this photo. Yeah, right. And here, if you usually, based on my experience, everyone who actually use Firestore usually doesn't know about Firebase mediators. But that's why we need to bring this up. For example, this the hackathon. For example, okay, I do a hackathon, and then yeah, I will use Firestore for the fast development, fast delivery, and then fast right. And yeah, I will just do some tests and debug with this console. Yes, that's correct, and that can be done for the mini project or small project. But for a company, you cannot because the data is real. It's a user's data. It's a lot of data. Once you mess up, for example, you delete the gallery's collections. It's done. The data is gone in production. Right? It's so dangerous. Dangerous. That's why we need a emulator to try to develop our features. They're actually using Firebase. So let's see what actually these emulators can help us how to develop. Let's see. So the features that actually can be emulated is there are a lot of things. For example, authentication emulator. If you are building some login or register features upon the authentication, we can use this emulator as well. Authentication emulator. Firestore and real-time database emulator. We are developing about the database. You can use this one. Storage. If you use some upload image, you can also use it, and many other things. There are a lot of hosting extensions. We will only talk about the cloud platform. As you know, even we try to emulate those features in our local. We even can integrate and connect the features one for another. For example, I try to develop a cloud functions emulator and a cloud Firestore emulator. I can connect those emulators inside my local PC. So that, yeah, we don't have to worry about how it's integrated to each other.
That means when you're using the emulator, let's say a local environment, then you have a production. So it's just like you push it. Can you push it from your simulator to your production?
It is built to be independent. So if you want that, there's a way, but it's not recommended, right? Because it built to make it independent so that the time actually we make some database operation to our local is not applied to the production. I think that's it.
Okay, so what I mean is, let's say you log your cloud functions locally. So those cloud functions that you have developed, so you want to push it to production. So the mechanism is how do you
So, for example, you're building cloud function locally, right? We're trying to develop the functions in our local, try to test it, see the logs, and everything. Oh, this works based on my expectation. Then we can try to deploy the function to the production.
for normal process lines?
Yes. Because normally we have to deploy it first and try it, but that's not good. That's why we have to try it first in our local. If it works, then we can deploy it.
So it's a bit like staging.
Yeah. There are a lot of other features about staging in Firebase and hosting as well. They're actually really interesting. And maybe I can show you later on. But it's actually a lot of topic. But the point is, for this function, it has emulator. If you are asking about hosting, you have website, right? So you don't have to build a multiple Firebase project. For example, you have one project for production, one project for the development. You don't have to do that. You only need one project. Then inside one project, actually there are a lot of domains that actually you can use. Let me show you just a little bit in here. Okay. If you see the console, there is hosting on the left side. So you try to put on the hosting side. Actually, you can put a lot of other domains. For example, you have some domains in here. On the bottom side, actually, you can see you can add another site, which means you can deploy multiple domains in one Firebase project. For example, here, you are right. So we have, for example, live demo gallery web app in here, right? And then if you try to see it for this one, for example, I want to use another one. For example, normally live demo or staging program. Then you can also do that. And then the time actually you try to add the domain that is created already. And after that, you can try to check the domain and try to deploy it into the domain. For example, I can switch into the other website, slap the part of staging, and you can deploy the website over here, which is fast for creating a new domain. And this HTTPS is secure already, so there is no worry about that. Okay. Let's back our topic about the emulator. So in order to activate the emulator in your code, if you try to, for example, you are loading your Firebase feature, right? So actually there are one function that you can try to import to connect to the emulator, which is this connect cursor emulator functions. You try to import that and call it in your code. And you just need to define the port that you want to listen and the URL, for example, localhost, or probably 127 as usual, the localhost itself. That's it. So, for example, in the code, I will show you some here in order to activate it. Oh, okay. Yeah, installation, but later I will show you because it's on the code on my Visual video code. Later I will show you about the demo. So yeah, let me show you how we can build this with the emulators. So let me share this one. I will show you about maybe I will just show my entire screen. Okay, can you see the code? Right. So here, for example, I have some API here, right? So for example, I try to use Firebase Firestore here and a Firebase storage to put the image on the storage that I would like to upload for the gallery. And you know, every feature has these functions: connect Firestore emulator and connect storage emulator. Then we just need to decide. For example, if it's a localhost, then you can just connect to the person. And this is really cool. If you didn't put localhost here, if in production you will always use the emulator. That's not fun, right? So yeah, in order to detect whether it's a localhost, you can just put you can just create a new functions. You can just if it's into localhost, then yeah, it's development. And after that, it's localhost, then you can just connect, and then you can define the port. And after that, we have the very first thing that we need to do is basically you can use a Firebase emulators. And after that, the Firebase will provide you some information, what features that you would like to emulate. For example, applications, functions, Firestore, a lot of things that you can emulate. And I already activated all some of the features, especially for the Firestore and the hosting and storage to put the images. And after that, after you finish, you can define the port. It's basically a custom port that depends what you need. And after that, yeah, you can just download the emulators because I already did it and it's for me to download. But for the very first time, you need to download the emulators. Once it's been done, right, for the configuration, with Firebase.json, you will see actually this configuration. You will actually find out about the emulators in the JSONs, and then there are some configurations about your emulator functions, in what port, file store, in what port, and you can do the same for another thing. After you define all the port that actually we can run, then you can just use Firebase emulators. Start. And then everything will be embedded in your local and Firebase console will be implemented in your PC on your stuff. You see in the URL actually, there is a code emulator too, quite similar to the console but different. So don't take it wrong, right? In the overview, you will see that actually, okay, status on and hosting, storage, emulator status on in one code, you will see everything. And what emulators that actually run. And then in the logs, you will see that for any error happening, you can check the logs in here if everything is fine or not. You can do some console log probably for the debugging if you need it. You can see all the logs in here. Quite similar with the Google Analytics or Google Logs inside the Firebase console. So yeah, it's quite convenient because you can also see the storage, right? You can see, you can even manually upload a file in here. Manually upload a file and then return database, file store. This is the collections. It's still empty as you see, right? It's still empty because yeah, we didn't use any data the time that actually we start the emulators. Now, let's start to turn off the emulators and try. We can also try to import some data. For example, I add some parameters here. Minus import emulators data, and then I also add the second parameters export or exit, which means every data changes that I make to the local. The time that actually after I finish the emulator, all the data will be saved. It's not being reset because I need this data for the next testing or the next desktop. So we have this initial data. So yeah, you don't have to worry about seeding, database seeding and everything. You just need to import the files for the data that you already inserted, especially. And we check the second time, we have the data already being seeded. So yeah, we can even save this raw data somewhere else in the storage, in the Google Drive, anywhere you want, which is quite convenient. If you see actually the Firebase data, if you this data in here, this is some data that actually can be read, but it's quite readable a little bit. But the point is, the data saves a lot of features and a lot of collections and documents, but in a different format. Right? So now let's see about the local host that actually we have previously. We have running this emulator, right? And we have this React app that actually listening to the Firebase local. We just npm start, and then yeah, we have this local actually there for. And you see actually yeah, it has a different data, right? Rather than in our production. This is only one data. So you will not make a mistake uploading image to the productions. So all the changes in here actually happens on your local only. For example, I have to upload file the set like GIF. And yeah, this is the image. That's it. If you try to refresh it, this only happens in our local. Which is great. Now I will show you what the other one about emulator that actually can be put in our pipeline. Anyone familiar with pipeline? No? So pipeline is really useful for automatic deployment, automatic testing. For example, okay, you already finished code development, and then you like to deploy it, right? Before you deploy, you make sure that everything still works normally, and then you can try to run the tests inside. So in order to run the test for the Firebase features, right, you have some testing, for example, unit testing for the Firebase, and you need to make sure your Firebase works as expected before deployment. So that's where the pipeline is from. So you can deploy this emulator to the pipeline. For example, you are using GitHub Actions, or probably you are any other pipelines You can just run the emulators, and then you can try to put some insert and delete data. That's it. All right. I think that's all about the first emulator. I think let's just go back to the awesome. So in our summary, actually, here with the first store, we can make our database structure more efficient and fast, of course. And the second one, it can make our code readable, especially for the query. And yeah, the performance will also increase. And it's really convenient and fast. And about the third summary, actually, we can set up our own cloud file store in our local, which is called Firebase Emulator Suite for file store. And the fourth, we can optimize the cost. All right. You try to develop, try to test and debug in the productions in the console cloud for the Firebase, you might be get charged. But with emulator, no matter operation, how many database operations you do, basically, yeah, you will not get charged. It's free. So you can optimize the cost. So I think that's what those important summary for the first store and the emulator suite. Now, we have some questions probably. Anyone knows the answer? Why Firebase is efficient in managing our data? Anyone? No?
Easy to track.
Yeah?
Easy to track the data.
Track the data? Okay. Maybe you can say a lot. Okay. Any other answer? Okay.
Because it doesn't require a fixed structure.
Okay. Almost correct. Another one?
The schema is flexible, so you can, if you need to add more stuff, you just add more fields.
Almost. Any other question? Any other answer? No. The real answer is because Firebase is a NoSQL, right? So you can just directly go to the ID of the data rather using for example, you're using a SQL and then you make some query, right? Make some query where ID is equal this one. Actually, under the root, it's still querying all of those columns and data, and that's quite expensive. So with this Firebase is quite cheaper. And even Google Clean itself try to help us to minimize the cost. For example, if you need account data, for example, okay, you try to hit the restaurants API, you will get thousands restaurants list, for example, right? So if you only need how many restaurants I have in my database, you will fetch all of those and you will count it one by one, already like a random size maybe, right? But with the Firebase, you can just call the functions directly. For example, query.count. So this function count.count, you will get a response how many data you have without calling all of it. That's actually one way. So yeah, the Firebase is so efficient to manage our data because it's a NoSQL, and then as I said before, there are a lot of functions that you can call. For example, account. And then, yeah, a lot of other features, for example, offline mode that I told you before, but I will not show it here because it's totally a different topic, but you can try to implement offline mode. So what the concept is, the offline mode, for example, you don't have connection, right? It's impossible for you to connect to the cloud. But actually, in your local, in your Firebase client, CLI, SDK, actually will try to capture all your activities. Capture everything. For example, you make some modification to this particular data. For example, okay, you are updating restaurant ID, for example, 24. Right? And it will capture those and save the result in the local. Once you are on to the internet, it will try to perform those history to the cloud. I think that's the concept for the offline. And another one about the file store was actually good. Yeah, it's actually also a good time. So that you don't have to worry about implementing something like, yeah, about these every time everything like socket IO and everything is like you have to set up a lot of things. Now the second question, probably the last question. how you can take benefit from Firebase in the world? Anyone can answer it? We just discussed this before. How? This is dynamic answer actually. How? What is in your imagination that you can take about Firebase? Anyone?
You can test everything locally. Of course, without the cost of connection to the production, it's one thing. And I mean, for me, I'm more interested looking at Firebase. Of course, Firebase is expensive, Looking back at the code, for example, the calling to minimize the cost and so on. So I mean, as a developer, I think one of the advantages is that you can, the same environment you do production, you can emulate it locally on your system without extra cost. I mean, basically, didn't incur cost at all. Actually, that's the way I look at it.
That's correct. That's actually one of the way that you can take benefit from an emulator. For the second way, actually, as I said before, you can use emulator for the pipeline. Maybe you don't familiar with the pipeline, but maybe you can take a look later on what is pipeline. But the point is, you can also use this emulator not only in the local, but also in the process for example, your server, your own server. You can run emulator in your own server as well. You can try to perform, for example, automation testing, right? Maybe you have some automation testing, and for the automation, you need environment, right, for the development. Then you can just install this emulator to the server, and then you might be communicating the emulator to that server. Yeah, so one of the benefits that we can use for our work. And probably another thing about Firebase. Yeah. And the third one is about the log. With the Firebase emulator, all the logs happens in our local. So for example, you making some mistake, right? You're making some infinite loop, probably. Okay.
Can you say Firebase emulator is like a sandbox environment?
Yeah. It's a sandbox environment for all Firebase features. Authentication, storage, maybe asynchronous process like PubSub, functions, all of it. So that's really, really good. Okay. Any other imagination that you can take benefit for Firebase emulator? So, okay. Well, I wonder, do you have any questions before I end the session? And in your chat, if you kind of want to know about the demonstration that I showed you, there's a link below. It's a GitHub link that you can try to clone, probably, and you can try to take a look at how we can use Firebase and Firebase and the you just need to change the Firebase console ID, for example, and you can just go with it. Oh yeah, I have some copies like on WebXR. Right. Do we have that? Okay, I think we have that. Before that, any questions for this Firebase emulator? No? Clear? Okay. About this WebXR, yeah. This is our Firebase emulator, right? We can use this emulator to build our own framework, for example. Maybe some of you still not familiar how we can build our own CLI, for example. Our own CLI, our own library that we can use by using NPM, and we can publish it in the NPM. Actually, there are a lot of possibilities. I will show you how. This is about so I have this library. This is a library that I made. For example, it's called Surahutomo. But yeah, this is only for a prototype actually. But the point is, this is a library to create our own framework that actually integrating XR with the Firebase. So if you kind of curious about WebXR, you can try to search about this inframe.io. Anyone of you familiar with this one? This is basically AR framework on 3D, but on web. let's see, we have some kilobyte here on it. See? So it's like a 3D website. And you can go, like, it's like game where you can just push a button and you can just walking to the objects and going past to it. So this is very light game. And you can enter the VR mode if you want. There's some VR mode as well. Okay, so we have this iframe library, right, for XR experience, and how we can try to how we can create this into a very standalone framework. But let's see. I might need to search about previous repository thing. Oh, that one. And see. Okay. So I have two components in here. The dependencies for the library and the CLI. So what is CLI? CLI is basically like if you try to put Firebase init, Firebase start. So it's quite similar. You can use that with your own. So for example, in the CLI, in order to create your own framework for the WebXR, for example, if you see, you can use some of these modules and dependencies. For example, here I use Commander. So what is Commander? So this Commander is actually a tools to detect our command. For example, okay, Firebase init, Firebase unit stuff. So those commands will be captured by this method, so that you can call the functions, the relevant functions that you need. And then this includer as well is quite useful if you have some options that you can use. So let's try to take a look about how it works. For example, I have this, let's see about the code. Why is not working? Let's see the line and then let's see. Okay, if you see in here, you actually see some code. Can you see that? Yeah, basically. So you can try to import those libraries and call the function. For example, here, program, I'm trying to zoom in. So program, the command, the option, the descriptions, you can use that. So in here command, for example, I have some library. Okay. In here, I choose create. So in this case, if you have, if you set up your own naming for your framework, then you can just, for example, Firebase create. That's how it is. If you use your own, then it means file create. And yeah, you can put some parameters, objects like a main import or main name. You can use any other options, and then the actions. This is what the function we call. Probably create new project. So this is one of the effort that I need to create a new project, a new master project, for example. The same, I can use a program, the command of start. It's like your npm start. So it's quite the same. npm start, Firebase start, and actions, new, and then run project with these options. Okay. So if you're curious about what's behind this, is actually you can make some shell script. Let me show you. The UI is messed up. There is a code. Oh yeah, this one. In the lead, in here, I have some executables here. So executables basically shell code that you can use, for example, run project. And you can just echo running the project. For example, okay, running in the local host, for example, what core that you can have it. This is just for the prototype actually. The same with the generate project. So for the generate, we have some templates here. Starter project path, and then we have some templates. And you can just copy and paste the templates and modify the files, for example, the project name with your own field. Yeah, so this is quite useful. And what makes different is you can also import the WebXR run-real iframe that I mentioned before. And then you can also import Firebase CLI that I mentioned before. and you can wrap all of those into this your own framework. And then after that, after you finish, you can try to deploy or publish it in PFJS, and then you can do it and similar with the Firebase, right? npm install global Firebase tools. Right? So for for this one, you can also deploy your CLI here, and you can publish your CLI to people, and they can use it. This is useful for standard code. For example, all of the employees using your own framework. Okay, I have a company name ABC, and then you can use your ABC name for the standard. ABC project create or generate, you will use the same standard for the project. Yeah, that's one of the use cases. All right. Any questions before the end session? Cool. All right, then I will end this session. I hope it's useful. I'm sorry if I mistake. I hope, yeah, if you have questions, feel free to ask me in the LinkedIn. You can just type my name in LinkedIn. You will find me. You can have conversations, and yeah, I will be glad to have you. That's all, and thank you.
Can you show the example where you using your emulator to the pipeline?
Pipeline. All right.
I just a quick one. Sorry.
To be honest, I forgot the project name, but let me
Just take a simple project.
I forgot the sponsor, but let me try that. Pipeline. Do I have the name for it? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. This one. I think I forgot the project name, but maybe you can just me out a link, but the point is, it takes some research. I forgot the Firebase project name. Yeah. What I put it, I forgot to do it, but maybe I will try to look at it in my archive repository. Please reach me out on LinkedIn, and I will share the GitHub so you can check.
Okay. Well, thanks.
All right. I think because it will take time. Thank you, and hope you have a good day.
Before we end this session, let's do a little Kahoot quiz.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the quiz is from you, right?
Yes. If you can close your video. Ada suaranya.
I will be showing some time lapse for us if you want. A little bit. Maybe you can start the chart thing for a little bit. Yeah, because this is one of the examples for the pipeline for the unit or implementations. So I have this Firebase ID type rock. So this is a project where I can do some research and do some places. So, for example, I try to update with me here, right? And then the action will trigger these pipelines. For example, okay, if we have some emulator,
Okay.
so inside this emulator, we will install Firebase emulator suite first in our pipeline, in our GitHub actions, right? After we install it, then we need to try to load our dependencies for our Firebase. And after that, this is the important point. Okay, we use some functions, Firebase functions. Then we just need to install the dependencies for the functions, right? And for example, cd functions, and then you can just go ahead and install. And after that, after everything is installed, then you can just run our tests here. So in here, for example, I start these emulators with this command, run Firebase emulators execute, and then project name and everything. And then for these Firebase emulators, I pass some scripts, which is npm run test. You see it in here, npm run test. Yeah, and basically it will run this emulator inside the pipeline and running the test. If everything is fast, I have some test case here. Should be able to see member profile data, should not be able to run member data, and a lot of other test cases. So then, okay, it's all passed. And then after we pass it, then the going on will be proceed. That's how this is. Is there any questions? Good. All right, and that's it for the very long last sessions, I'm not sure. But thank you so much for your attention, guys. Thank you.
For the top 3 winners, the prize giveaway will be tomorrow at 4:15 during the closing ceremony.